in the course of time. But here you don't compromise. So that when we say a set of individual work, and that is why the migrant literature is a standalone. It doesn't create a network. Just like the post-colonial literature, it created a network. So you can identify, okay, in major syllabus formation, you can write, okay, these one novel, one drama, one poetry, and the post-colonial. But when it comes to migrant literature, you can't just pick up. Everything is representative. Everything is unique. Everything is standalone because they all show you, no one shows you a common set of emotion. So they become unique in their own intellectual treasures. Each one has its own way to reach out to that intellectual treasure. Now, when we have started including migrant literature into the syllabus, it is basically what we are doing is we are studying only past few years. The migrant literature doesn't go beyond 50 years at all. They don't have memory beyond that, because before that it was political struggle, before that it was era-based struggle, what the British way of counting them. So you don't have a bigger span of migrant literature. It's hardly 50 years. 50 is also, I'm giving a much leverage, not even 50, hardly 30 years, 35, 40 years that you find that. So the comparatives are very difficult to bring out at this juncture. If one genre is being written only for 30 years, 35 years, not even 40 years, then you can't bring out the comparative. So it's just a beginning trend of writing the migrant literature. Now let me talk something about the diaspora literature. What is diaspora then? If migrant is this, then what is diaspora? And diaspora is a very old term. It's not a new term. People have been writing in diaspora. Gandhi wrote Hind Swaraj on a ship journey. And that is one of the biggest diaspora literature. There are so many other diaspora literature. Lala Lajpat Rai wrote essays in America and in London. Savarkar wrote so many. Aurobindo wrote, and Swami Vivekananda wrote, and so many of them famous Indian authors only. If you look at, we find diaspora literature. I'm not talking of that typical modern diaspora literature, which are written only for awards, and they fix up the writers, and then there's a big scam going on. They pick up the mythological terms and they distort the mythology, and the result is we think these are the awarded books, so they should be taught in our university, and without reading them, we prescribe them in our syllabus. I'm not talking about this pseudo diaspora writing at all. We are talking of the genuine diaspora writing. For example, Fiji Mein Mere 12 Varsh by Tokaram Sanadia, or Munshi Rahman Khan when he writes his autobiography. They are the real diaspora because they show you the condition of diaspora. They show you the emotions of a diaspora narrative. And there is a Ramayana written by a diaspora author. There are few Jatak Kathas written by the authors. So diaspora literature is where you find that nostalgia content too high. And with that nostalgia comes respect for the culture, respect for the homeland. It's not a scornful approach for the homeland. You don't discard away your homeland whether you have lived or not lived. That doesn't matter. So that belongingness and unbelongingness is the criteria between diaspora and migration. In migration, you might be writing the story of a migrant, but they don't write about their homeland. Even if they write about the homeland, it is just maybe a narration or maybe just a mention, but not with a respectful eye. But in diaspora, one has that unsaid comparison between the lands, homeland and the host land, where you can actually see it happening in such a manner that, okay, that particular feel you can also travel even staying in India. You can feel that pain. You want to give a shout out and say, okay, come back. We are here to receive you. We are here to, see you happy. But in migration, it's a feeling that, okay, these were to happen, so okay, you face it. Distances between the migrant literature and diaspora literature. A closer connection of the migration world literature is really difficult, because what the Black migrants have faced, the Asian migrants differently. Again, it's based on the religion. Again, it's based on the countries. So don't think that we can create a huge network of the migration literature. They all furnish us with the transnational scenario and unique experiences. And one more thing, what type of models are we creating out of these literature creative writing is also important, because unknowingly they are also creating the faces of the nations. Though they are not mentioning their home land and they're not mentioning their home nations, but they are creating the faces. So these creative writings, they actually project knowingly or unknowingly their homeland. So I think I would stop here and would request for the questions, if any, over there.
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, are you asking me?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if the questions are there, I would be happy to address them.
Sure, ma'am. Actually, we had asked participants to drop their questions in the chat box.
Sure, so we'll wait.
Yeah. So we have not received any questions, but somebody wants to ask a question, has raised a hand. Let me see.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Let me just bring out a few things of the diaspora literature.
Sure.
I don't know how much justice I could have done for the migrant literature, but I have actually not touched much the diaspora literature. See, diaspora is such a condition that either you go as a community diaspora or as you go as an individual diaspora. There are two types. One is the settler and another is the visitor. The visitor is who goes for a smaller time and comes back, like a student goes for his studies and comes back. The settler is one who goes beyond and then he settles down over there. So naturally, the experiences of both would be different. A person who goes for a smaller time and comes back and then writes, even that can be termed as a diaspora literature if a person is writing about the other land, the host land. So this also can be counted as the diaspora literature. Okay, I think few of them have flashed some questions.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There is a question. Are there any current novels based on migration literature? Thank you for the talk. Devanshu Parmar is asked.
Yeah. So recently we had Sea of Poppies. The Sea of Poppies was one of those, people call it a diaspora literature because it was written by a diaspora author, but it was more like a migrant's literature. Because it talks about all those journeys which a migrant is facing over there and not holding those questions which are here. So one of them is these. The other, if you go to African countries, East Africa primarily, what literatures they are writing, Anu Prakashji is writing so many drama. Well, they are not writing about India at all. They are writing about their problems of migration and their situation, sometimes even their contribution. We have Anil Anath in Mauritius, Lal Salam and all, they are writing about their conditions in their country. So if you go to African continent, you will find much of the migrant literature written over there. Jahajin is one such novel, which is a migrant's literature. So there are many of them.
Ma'am, someone has asked that does migration writing also include the movement from one state to another, or just between countries or continents?
Correct. So there are internal migration and external migration. And when we say internal migration, surely it is counted as the displaced writings, not migration, because you still have your place in your native state, but you have dislocated yourself or relocated yourself. So it is under the displaced writings within the country. Like most of us are the cases of internal migration or internal diaspora. I won't say migration because we go back to our native states. That's why it is there internally. If you are moving away from your state, then surely, even within the state, if you are moving away from your city, native city, then also it is called the native diaspora. So surely it can be done.
And I think a final question is that somebody is asking about the diaspora literature about India.
See, Indians have a quality. Wherever they have gone, they have learned their languages. So if an Indian is living in Germany, knows German. Someone is living in Mauritius, started talking them. If someone is living in Indonesia, talks in Bahasa, they talk in Japanese. So when they have a blended culture of languages, then they start thinking and writing. But surely Indians are writing primarily in their own mother tongues. Very few Indians are writing in English. They are mostly writing in Marathi, in Assamese, in Bengali, in Hindi, in Gujarati. So we have many diaspora writers who are writing in their mother tongues. The problem with Indian universities is, number one, the diaspora doesn't have a separate study centers. It is normally covered under English departments. And English departments don't allow diaspora writings written in mother tongues. So they again and again land up to the same authors who are writing in English only. But huge write-up is being written in native languages by diaspora. In Oriya, I know they are writing. In Tamil, they are writing. In Karnataka, the Kannada, they are writing. Huge writers are coming up in diaspora. Only thing is they are circulating among their own communities and they are not reaching to the academic departments of the universities. Okay, one is how can we develop writing skills? To develop writing skills, you need to start reading. Without reading, you can't become writing. Writer, the earlier writers who never wrote, but they sang. Kabir sang, he never wrote. Sant Ravidas sang, he never wrote. How did they sing? They heard and then they sing. So to your creativity will lead you towards that sense only. It's why someone turns out to be a sad writer, someone turns out to be a very philosophical writer, someone turns out to be a writers of comic pieces. You know, your interest guides you towards that. But the levels of wisdoms, the level of absorption has to be created first. Okay, there's a question, Rohingya refugees narration will certainly be a migration writing. Yes, if they are writing, if the Rohingyas are writing, it will be a migration writing for sure, because they are the migrants. Okay, then I think most of it we have taken. Okay, creative writing written under the name of Diaspora Literature books by Jhumpa Lahiri can be considered as creative writing. Anything that someone has written originally is creative writing. Any original writer is called a creative writer. So don't get mixed up in these terms. As I told you, the West is very, very oriented and tuned and trained mind. They are not flexible and flowing like us. For us, if you give one suggestion and we can create a mental impression, for them to create a mental impression is very difficult. So they try to create definitions. So a creative writer is basically an author only. A creative writer is basically a lyricist only. A creative writer is basically a dramatist only, because ultimately you will write in a genre. So whatever genre you are writing, you will be termed as, if you are writing a drama, you will be called a dramatist. But you have created that world, that atmosphere, that lingua functioning. That is why you are called creative. So it's one and the same thing.
Ma'am, there's a final question in the question answer box. So somebody wants to know whether post-colonial theory can be used as a theoretical lens to analyze forced migration literature.
No, no. As I said, post-colonial was a reaction to show the colonizers that it's not only you who can create literatures. We can also create literatures. And post-colonial literature didn't have the migrant as a theme. The theme differentiates, no, the literature genre. Migrant literature doesn't have the same theme as post-colonial literature. Post-colonial were writing free of themes. So it cannot be termed as a post-migrant literature. It cannot. Migrant literature, they're talking about the histories of the migrants. You have to understand. If they're not writing, then even a migrated author cannot be called as a migrant literature. The theme is very important.
Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of our talk. Thank you, Dr. Gupta ma'am, for your insights. So just a reminder, everybody, the link for the feedback form is posted on the chat box, and I request everybody to fill it for the certificate. I now request Dr. Urmi Dave ma'am, School of Liberal Studies, PDEU Gandhinagar, who is also a guest faculty with us, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Nakia. And I do not know how to thank Nirja ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. I do not have enough words to thank you for this insightful lecture. Migration and creative writing both are huge and distinct academic territories for all the students like me to study. However, your expertise, ma'am, has presented a natural synergy between the two and between these two domains, which are very overlapping as well as distinct. Ma'am, you have opened up various research gates for the students and research scholars like me. So, ma'am, I thank you again and again for giving us your valuable time and opening up the wide horizons of knowledge in the area of migration and creative writing. I also thank Dr. Rohit Singh, the Dean, Academic and Head of the School of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences, for his involvement in students' overall academic growth. Thank you, sir, for your kind support and guidance. I also thank Dr. Sunil Sagar for organizing this expert talk and considering me as a link in this August gathering. Thank you so much, sir. At this juncture, it is very much necessary to thank Mr. Puneet Pathak, whose timely coordination and intact management plays a crucial role in bringing success to this event. I am sincerely thankful to the university's technical support. Saying thank you is like spreading spirituality. This is something that I have learned from Nirja ma'am, my mentor. Thank you all the students and participants. I'm sure we have filled in our bags with many research ideas. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Nirja Gupta, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Mohit bhai, we can end the webinar here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.